Ah, good old Canadian Pizza Unlimited, or CPU, Canadian Pizza Unlimited. So definitely a great brand, very successful, and I just hope that the video is caught on here. The video, not the video, but the audio. So this is the good old backyard. What's very interesting is that when I was at university, like 20 plus years ago, this backyard, very much like the backyard of my friend and good buddy Jerome Robinson, and this is the Jeep that I mentioned in the previous video. So, you know, a couple of meth heads went out and basically drove it around and like smashed it up, and now it's undrivable. But that being said, we were blessed with the Honda Cube that I mentioned in the last video. So I was gonna go out for a run, but then I thought that I would well, shoot a video, obviously. YouTubing in the time of the pandemic, right? So everyone apparently is a YouTuber now. So it's brought out the YouTuber in me too. So this is where my beautiful neighbors Shane and Tali live. They're Jewish, by the way. Actually, it's very interesting because I'm making this this little vid here for the edification, as it were, of my good friend Ginzburg. I know the light's not that good right now, but at least you're getting a good view of the beautiful neighborhood that we live in, which is Oak Ridge in southwest Calgary. There you go, that's a bit better. Beautiful neighborhood. It's literally like being in the mountains. I just can't get over how amazing it is to live out here. And then I go down the way and then there's this beautiful trail that just opens up into the hinterland. Like, frankly, we live literally on the edge of town, right? Like southwest, south of downtown, all the way out in the boonies almost. I mean, it's populated and there's stores, and we're only minutes away from major highways and whatnot as usual, but it's far more wide open than other parts of Calgary, and it's lovely. You come outside and there's the trees and the open air, and I'm used to living in the northeast of Calgary, where northeast of Calgary is where all the brown people live, like the Pakistanis and the Indians and whatnot. God, it's been years since I've done this. Like walking down the road making a YouTube video, it's actually very therapeutic. You know, I want to point out again that a lot of people say, well, you should listen more than you speak, and I believe in this too. But where I disagree is when people say, oh, you only learn when you're listening. You only learn when you're listening, you don't learn when you're talking. Actually, it's not true. For a person such as myself, speaking allows you to organize your thoughts. You might have the inkling of something stirring in the subconscious that you may have thought about for years. You may have been pondering something from time to time that seems like an insoluble mystery, and just formulating the question or the thought and putting it into words is a necessary exercise. Apparently, now it's not like I'm comparing myself with the man, but apparently Abraham Lincoln used to invite a friend over or something, and then nice motocross. So this is the beautiful trail I mentioned. Isn't that awesome? And this is actually nothing. it goes on and on and on. And you know, it opens up into the so-called hinterland that I mentioned before. Now, Abraham Lincoln used to invite a friend round, and the dude who visited him would be forced to sit there for 2 to 3, if not 5 hours, while Abraham Lincoln paced up and down talking to the guy. And these YouTube videos serve a similar purpose for me. It's not so much that I want to be a famous YouTuber anymore, or feel even that I have a profound message to share with the world, although don't we all? Don't we all? It's one of those things where you think of the question, are we really all geniuses? Like self-help gurus would have us believe. Are we really all that special? Right? And then how do you access those special genius parts of you? And how do you really become all you were meant to be, right? So this video was actually meant to be a message to my friend Oleg Ginzburg. So we go back a ways, all the way back to the University of Bridgeport, circa 1994 to 98. And people coming up the way, poor pandemic-stricken populace, bearing it out like good Calgarians, right? You know, they're out and about at least, but we're not congregating in crowds, right? So, in any case, so Ginzburg and I, 1994, University of Bridgeport, and just recently, in about 2016, he told me how nostalgic he gets over those times, right? And just him saying that obviously kind of increased the bond that I felt to him, right? Because I've felt so nostalgic over the years myself, but about different things. You know, I do feel that nostalgia that he's talking about from time to time with regards to all the great times at the good old University of Bridgeport, and you know, friends and all the craziness that ensued. But for the most part, my own nostalgic reminiscing has been you know, about my wife, actually. So we finally gotten back together after more or less like 5 to 7 years of separation, if not more. It's been a crazy ride. It's almost like Prophet Joseph, peace be upon him, and the Egyptians. We had 7 years of amazingness, like Fortune 500, 6-figure lifestyle, traveling across North America, not to mention South America, Colombia, where she's from. Stayed there for 6 months in 2008, and then in 2011, you know, tragedy of tragedies and all kinds of craziness, and we separated, and you know, it was just very hard. And she ended up in 2017 going off on a cruise ship. So she's a hairstylist, and basically she went around the world doing people's hair on a 5.5-star cruise ship. That's how luxurious they are. So you know, 2018 I guess she came back to Calgary, and 2019 she came out to Toronto where I was living, and we ended up, you know, coming back to, like, full circle back to Calgary in 2019, I guess, in the fall. Anyway, I'm rambling on as usual. I don't even know how useful these things are. I do enjoy them, and they're one of those things that I get lost in. Like, time just flies, and it's suddenly 10 minutes, and it's like, shoot, what happened here? But you know, you can actually enjoy some of this stuff. You can look at some of this stuff and say, oh my god, there's puddles everywhere, and what a mess, and it's cold, and the snow. Like today is a beautiful day. I mean, it's like 20s to, well, it's not 20s in terms of Celsius or anything, but it's pretty warm. It's almost intemperate because it's been so cold. It's obviously early April, and just a couple of days ago it was snowy and cold and really frigid. And you can see the beautiful hinterland that I've been mentioning, right? So it's opening up, and just like this whole thing, like just being able to come outside and just walk. You know, I mean, it doesn't look like you're in the city. It's like these beautiful trees. To me, it always feels like being in the mountains. And I always associate that with vacation and getaway and snowboarding and, you know, ski lifts and things like that. They're very nice associations. So whenever I come outside, right, for a run or a walk with their beautiful little dog Max, then it's amazing. It's magical. And we suffered a lot, and I suffered a lot. And due to certain things that I don't feel like talking about today, you know, I was actually in and out of homeless shelters for 7 years, in and out of one room boarding houses, or a room in a boarding house. I was actually in and out of psychiatric wards for 7 years. I was in and out of jail for 7 years. I was on and off the street for 7 years. It was insanely different than what you'd expect in terms of a general not white collar, but yeah, white collar upbringing, middle class background. So this is the famous hinterland, and I want to go for a jog now. I'm going to go jogging down there, all the way down, like about 10 minutes jog down there. Then we come into this great like heritage park, and there's a beautiful reservoir in the middle of it. Like it's like you're in the middle of France, quite frankly, or actually the southern shore of France. I'd figure it to be something like Marseille. But yeah, man, life goes on and time passes, and just Ginzburg saying that he feels nostalgic about those days struck a very heavy chord with me. And I've been meaning to talk and write about nostalgia, and I'll do that at some point. Nostalgia it's a killer. But just like depression, it adds a lot of beauty and depth to life, right? Depression and sadness. Somebody tweeted the other day about joy, and joy is always within you, and, you know, quoting some Indian sage. And that's great. Joy is great, but you know what? Sadness is also great, right? Joy is great, but sadness is also great. So I'm going to head off here shortly, but the thing is, when I make these videos, among other things, I always get sidetracked, and it's like, you know, I start off saying one thing and then don't even get around to saying what I wanted to. What I wanted to say was the following, okay? First of all, the nostalgia thing was just a side note, okay? I've been nostalgic about my wife, like the 7 years we were apart, or the 5 years, or whatever, because we were always in touch. We just weren't really living together, and it was just crazy. It's hard to talk about, but you know, so I've suffered, and I continue to have very deep feelings about the past from time to time, and you know, those kinds of semi-regrets of, oh my God, all this time's passed. What have I actually achieved, right? Same as I'm sure many of my beautiful listeners. So I'm coming up on 50 minutes. Here's what I wanted to say that I might get into at a later date. So I was talking to Ginzburg. I started recording this video for him on Skype, and it's very interesting. So we've got not a pyramid, but a triangle in terms of the conceptual framework of how to live your life, right? Because everyone's interested in bettering themselves, and you know, so we're looking for those principles that would lead to the betterment of our condition, essentially. So you've got the self-help gurus, the motivational speakers, and all these kinds of guys, and I here worship them just like the next guy, right? And so you've got self-help, and me being a salesman in terms of like career, right? You know, I listen to a lot of sales stuff, There's a lot of really good entrepreneurial-based motivational stuff out there right now, like the Gary Vaynerchuks and Grant Cardones of the world. You know, there's the spiritual, or let's say holistic type of motivational stuff, like Dr. Joe Dispenza and obviously the classic Deepak Chopra. So you've got self-help that sometimes kind of goes into spirituality, and then the last part of that triangle is the religious. So I'm a religious person. I'm a devout Shia Muslim, and part of what I would like to do, and I've wanted to do since I was young, is expound on these things. You know, obviously things like Muslims are exactly the same as other people, and Islam doesn't teach you how to hate people and none of this stuff. I mean, what we're all aiming for is the epitome of what it is to be human. This is the purpose of every religion, and religion gets such a bad rep nowadays. I really don't want to go into it, but what I was beginning to get out on my brief Skype message to Ginzburg, brief because they cut me off at like 3 minutes, what I was beginning to scratch at, and I haven't really even touched upon at all in this video, was the interesting dichotomy as such between spiritual and motivational. And Ginzy, this is what I was trying to say, buddy. You're probably like one of the only ones who'll watch this video to this point. Spirituality and motivation, or spirituality and self-help. Okay, so self-help talks about I, me, as being the preeminent, you know, preeminent and powerful being that I apparently am. You know, you have affirmations about I'm powerful, I'm rich, right? I'm successful, I'm the master of my domain. So that's the kind of thinking that self-help and motivational gurus want to empower you with. You're in control, you're in charge, right? And there's this cult of I, right? On the other hand, if you look at things from a spiritual perspective, spirituality, just on that one note, or just taking that one approach, or just around that one theme of I and the ego, you'll realize right away what I'm trying to get at. Like, spirituality is about being humble. Spirituality is about the negation of I. You see how interesting that is? And you know, there's actually a whole series of themes that are prevalent in motivational theory that are almost, well, I mean, you need to juxtapose them with spirituality. And I started writing a book. I made some notes one time when I was in jail about the concept of self-help versus spirituality. So being humble is awesome. Submitting yourself to the universe, that's the thing right there. Going with the flow, all of that is negation of the I. Just let go, you know? But on the other hand, you've got, you know, you need to be responsible for your decisions and your life. You're responsible for your life. You need to be responsible for your decisions. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition, right? So, hey, listen, if you listen this far and you actually got that, I'm sure it was interesting. And I got to go jogging, so I'll talk to you all later. Bye, Ginzy, and we'll talk soon, buddy.